amortization period? Is it 2-year, 5-year?
We did have a, I would like to turn the floor over to Mr. Sluchenkov. We did discuss this on the SLT, and I believe our default is 5, but the reality is we have very different machines across the corporation. Some do high volume, some do not, some we need for color, some do not. It really depends on the nature of what you do for a living. This item, I also believe, was last year deferred, so we sort of choked 1 extra year out of the existing machine. But if I may, I'd like to turn the matter over to Mr. Sluchenkov, who I think has some answers.
So the specific machine in question and the first that you're seeing on page 2.2, I got the privilege to sort of kick it off today. So that particular machine is in the Robinson Administration Building and is shared between the Human Resources and the Corporate Services staff. So it's a very high volume machine that sees over 2,000 sort of papers that it puts out, 20,000 papers that it puts out on a monthly basis. So it was purchased in 2013, and it's hitting 5 years in 2018, which is, you know, what you'd expect out of the life for this particular machine. And in the month that I've been here, it's died a couple of months on me, so I've been very unhappy with that sort of standing at it sit there and not being able to do the work that the group needs it to do.
Thank you.
Okay, I see, like, I'm not looking for the specific machine, Mr. Mayor. I get the printers are disposable items. It's just odd that it's by department, not under IT. We're not, if we're spending $100 and some thousand throughout this budget on photocopiers, maybe we need to look at leasing them so that we don't take the big capital hits, move it into operating that way, but it just seems inefficient. And they're pretty pricey items when they start to add up. It's good.
Thank you. And just so you know the rules of the game, if you wish an item to be removed or reduced, or heaven forbid increased, I will need a mover and a seconder. Our procedures have changed. So as council, we will need, even for the budget session, a mover and a seconder. Yes, play by the rules. I've got a couple questions here. As you know, Councillor Oliver certainly left us a list of some of his concerns. I have highlighted them. Some of them I agree with, or my questions too. Some of them I don't particularly agree with, and that's just the name of the game. So I will be asking some of the questions that he's raised, and certainly some of my own. But he did, a question I have, I guess, for Brent is the $70,000 property management software. Do we need the whole $70,000 program or software program or whatever it's referred to as? If you could maybe give us a little information on that software.
Through Mr. Mayor, the $70,000 includes training. It's an upgrade of our current property management system to a web-enabled system. The system we have now has a web component to it, but is not fully web-enabled. This newer product by the same company is completely web-enabled, removing a lot of client updates that we have to do to all the computers, and it provides more mobility for the building and bylaw staff, as well as we can provide more community access for building permits and stuff like that. So it's an upgrade to the system. So eventually it has to be done by the company, because eventually they will not be supporting the current property management system. They are giving us a number of years to do it. The $70,000 includes training, I think, and consulting services, because at the same time when we look at it, I believe building and bylaw want to look at the whole, how they're using the system now and how they can improve efficiencies with it, and having someone in and just kind of review the whole process and procedure that's being used. Also, I should include planning staff as well, and just seeing if there's any way of better implementing the system. So I would say out of the 70, I think we've put like 20,000 for consulting and training and so on and so forth. We're estimating the actual upgrade to cost between 30 and 50 is what we're kind of guessing. So to answer your question, yes, the 70,000 right now is a complete looking at an overhaul of the system and looking for efficiencies and lots of other things as well.
Are you sort of telling me that we couldn't do this over 2 years? Or would the training and the full 70,000 all have to be in 2018? Could we reduce this by $25,000 this year?
Usually, we've never actually done that before. We usually, when we implement, we do it all in the same year. I don't know if I can answer that easily. I'd have to go back and look at that.
Okay, that's fair, thank you. Councillor Height?
Mayor Luke, just for clarification, since you're in the chair, so can you move a motion?
Not I, no, sir.
No, so I brought Councillor Oliver's list with me
Good,
as
thank
well.
you.
So, and first on his list is this one. So I'm going to move the motion that we defer this for 1 year. You know, this is a $49,000 hit versus the levy for property management software. Okay, we have a property management position, and you will find there's a report that is supposed to be, it's on our action item list that deals with that position. And in there, if this is a tool that they require, they should be funding it from certain properties that could be sold. That's how
Okay.
that position was originally
All right.
justified.
I don't mean to be rude. I'm going to ask for a seconder because you're sort of into the rationale discussion. The motion is to defer this for 1 year. That's a mover. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Geisens has seconded. Continue. Sorry to interrupt, but I think I'll follow that procedure closely. Go ahead.
I'm kind of done, Mr. Mayor. I think everyone got the gist of it. I'm kind of done. That should be factored into the property management position. It should pay for the software. It should pay for that position.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Wells.
Thank you. Before I vote on this, because obviously it's going to be a vote, could we hear from staff as to what would possibly be the ramifications of deferring this for 1 year? Because I did hear, if I heard it correctly, that there might be some negative issues with.
Mr. Baird?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Mayor. Just for clarification, it's being referred to as property management software. This is CityView. This is the main application that is used in planning, building, bylaw, economic development, and engineering. It's not related to the property management person or that group. So this is it falls under the IT area here, but that is our main software package that we use 90% of my staff. Just for clarification.
Oh, just continuing then, if I hear you correctly, this is a very important part of your organization, and we did get your report the other day about how busy your department is, and this computer is an integral part of that. Am I correct?
Through the mayor, this is the software application that we use for everything, for tracking bylaw, building permits, planning applications, engineering, everything in one area.
Everybody knows I want to save money, but in this case where that department came in with $1 million, I just can't save $35,000 or postpone it when I already heard that this has already been postponed at least a year or two already. So things do wear out, Mr. Mayor.
Please?
Mayor Luke, if it's CityView software, that should be named in this thing. It's not like we don't see those emails constantly, that it's down most of the time is what I see for the emails. But that being said, if 90% of our staff are using it, why are we spending $21,000 on training? They don't know how to use the program that they use constantly?
Further? Mr. County Manager?
To the 2 points, we had a discussion around SLT about whether or not we would specifically name products that we were looking to purchase, because it does have, or it could have, the inadvertent outcome of seeming like we're endorsing one specific brand or outcome, and we're trying to do better vis-a-vis our purchasing policy. However, if it is council's preference, we could. So we scrubbed out the names of that would have helped in this instance. Council right, makes a fair point. I mean, if it said City View, that confusion would have been avoided. So if you have a preference, that would be a great thing to instruct us via motion. We're happy to take that instruction. We just, after a debate, went the other way, but we're here to serve you. Beyond that, City View is and here I go endorsing a product, but it is the, industry standard, by far the dominant product in the market. And although I don't use it personally, I understand that the next generational upgrade is significant, profound, choose what term you wish, and we do want the training rolled out to everyone. So we actually use the whole functionality. We don't want to end up with the car with all the bells and whistles and not know how to open the sunroof or put on the cruise control. We actually, for efficient, we really want to get the functionality of the whole new sort of generational upgrade, which is why those dollars are in there.
Anything further? You've heard the motion to defer this 1 year. I'll call the question. Those in favor? 2, 3. Those opposed? I too will oppose it based on the explanation from staff. Further to page 2-2. Councillor Brunton, please.
Okay, Mayor Luke, follow me for a minute. I've done some thinking on this, and this will help maybe to deal with the situation we dealt with last night on Evergreen
Yes.
Hill Road. So I'm into the engineering, and Lee, I need some help here when we look at this. I know some of these projects were delayed from last year, but here's what I'd like to see us think about. Kent Street, the second line item, Robinson to Colburn. I'd like to see that. It's all reserves, it says, but let's push that off a year. We know we don't have any reserves, but let's push it off a year. And then come down to Turl Street, Beckett to King. I assume that one is engineering only. Is that correct? And the not that one. There's one in Delhi just below that, 65,000, and one in Port Dover at 75,000. Are those both engineering?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and then go over to the second page, and I'm sorry, Your Worship, but if on 2-3, we have South Drive, which I believe is engineering too, at 170. And if we could take those three, and if that I've mentioned, the one in Delhi, Dover, and Simcoe, that are all engineering, and scrap them for this year and put in Evergreen Hill Road for engineering, would that work?
Through the mayor to council, it would work minus the project in Delhi. There's several projects here in Delhi. They're all tied together and they all need to be done at the same time. So we would have to delay all of them or
Okay.
none of them.
Okay, and what about then if we, and I don't know what you need for engineering, but what about the one under that for 140 at Don John Boulevard? If we push that engineering off 1 year and then flipped it over into Evergreen, would that work?
Yes, we could move Don John.
Okay, so if we want me to go back over them again? Push it off a year. Yeah. And-
It's not. Okay, I think it's working again. So we're talking about deferring Kent Street, deferring Tyrell for, I think that's how it's pronounced, for another year. Tyrrell? Okay. For a year, as well as deferring Don John and South Drive.
Yeah, if you want to, I don't know what you need for engineering for Evergreen. Do you want to think that one over? Maybe.
Yeah, no, those would be sufficient to give us enough funding to be able to do Evergreen, or to start Evergreen next year.
Okay, because a lot of these other projects were canceled, like Basil and Holden, right? They're ready to go.
Basil was never canceled. We deferred
Right.
we canceled the construction contract. That money was approved as part of the 2017 budget, and it's done. No matter what we do with that, it's not going to affect this year's budget.
Right, right.
So it's not, you don't even see it on this list because it's already accounted for. It was just the timing of the contract that was deferred. Second Ave, this is the second portion that you see in here. We've already got a significant portion already approved for construction. I would recommend that Second Ave stay in there.
Okay.
Just because we'll get some cost efficiencies by doing both at the same time. There aren't any other deferred. Holden wasn't deferred. Holden was a project where we approved the engineering last year with the anticipation of construction in 2018. So
Right.
there aren't any deferred projects that are on this list. But with respect to the three that you had suggested, we can the four, including Kent Street, we can certainly replace those with the Evergreen project.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. We'll put the
Push 'em ahead.
tender for Kent Street on hold.
Yeah.
We'll have the engineer actually draft it and have everything ready to go. And we'll bring it back forward in 2018 for those budget deliberations and then issue the tender if it's approved at that time.
Okay, so South Drive Engineering and Don John Boulevard Engineering, move ahead. Move ahead.
Oh, sorry, we're going to push them to the 2018, we're going to defer them to the 2019 budget
But
deliberations.
you're going to bring in a figure for Evergreen.
Yes.
Engineering.
Yes, the figure, well, if you put in approximately, we did some rough calculations, so we're at about 3.5 million to do Evergreen, including the engineering and the construction and everything at this point.
So 20%, 10% engineering?
About 15% is what we're seeing typically.
15? So what's that? I haven't got my.
Sorry, when we did the calculations, we figured out that about 3.5 million would do the engineering and the construction for Evergreen.
So we talking about 400 and something thousand then for engineering? Out of that?
Oh, no, that would, the 3.5 million would include the engineering
No,
required to do
so
that
I'm
work.
saying, for this year, if we insert the engineering, we're talking about 400 and something, am I?
Oh, yes, approximately, yeah.
Because I would assume the project won't happen until next year.
If council approves the engineering and the construction money this year, we will be able to tender it late in the year next year.
Next year.
So in the end of 2018, if we don't approve the capital for the construction today,
Yeah,
then the problem that will be is we won't be able to release the tender
yeah.
until November of next year.
So three and
So
a half.
we would ideally like to put in, if council's desirous of moving ahead with that project, we'd like to put 3.5 million in this year's budget.
Okay.
So
you-
that we would be able to, once we have it engineered, just proceed with issuing the tender. Although the majority of the construction won't take place in 2018, at least we can get the contract out on the street and get moving on what we can do.
Okay, so do you think you would need more than what we've just talked about?
Um,
I haven't done the math.
yeah. So if you give me 2 seconds to add up some numbers.
Do you follow that, Mayor Luke? Are we?
I am following it, and while she's looking that up, I thought last night in our discussion, again, this is not a criticism, but I'm just recalling last night, I thought there was a figure for the construction work of Evergreen Hill Road around 2.3 million. And so I'm thinking if that in fact is true and there's 15%, that's another 300,000. I'm thinking we're looking at 2.7.
Okay.
So I'm surprised to hear the 3.5.
Whatever.
But again, I don't recall if that was the figure that was put on the table last night, roughly 2.3.
The 2.3 was the historic number that had been carried for that balance, for that amount of money, but it was an old number. So when, last night after council, I went and ran some more numbers in anticipation of the meeting today, I think we're looking at about 3 million for the full construction of that whole section of Evergreen. Plus, I added $500,000 for the engineering. It's probably in the closer range of 400,000, but to be on the safer side, I think that if we're going to move that project forward, we should be finding $3.5 million in this budget. If it comes in, if our project comes in under budget, staff may very well be here suggesting that we do something else with the extra money as we've done.
And that's fine. We need to work with an as accurate a figure as possible, so I wasn't being critical, but Councillor Brunton?
Well, I'm just going back, and I appreciate Lee's help here. I'm just, I was thinking more of engineering project off in the next year, but I guess if you're saying we could push it into the end of the year, we got to find more then, don't we?
Just based on my rough calculations, yes. We do need to find a little bit more. I'm just looking to see what I can suggest out of here.
If it would help, Lee, if we, when you list these projects, if you put engineering, construct, like, I'm not sure some of these, I know they're short blocks, but I'm looking at just in here, which ones are engineering, which ones aren't.
I know, it's unfortunate, it's just the way the report prints,
Okay.
that we'll have to do some stuff. It's, when you look at it in a different format, it's easy to see what's engineering and what's not, but
Yeah.
we'll figure out a different way to do that for going forward for next year. If we can just leave it with me for a few more
Okay,
minutes, I'll run
we'll
some,
leave
I'll
it
run
with
some
you
more
for a
numbers.
moment. I have other speakers. Just before I get to Councillor Wells, Mr. Johnson, did you have a comment to make on this?
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Then I'll
Mayor.
go to Councillor Wells.
When we're doing the trade-off, I guess you can say, of capital projects in order to do Evergreen Hill, we are looking at projects that are replacements of assets, and we are, for lack of better words, replacing some of these projects with a project that has a very large new initiative associated with it. And the new initiative is the sidewalk. I don't know what, if Ms. Robinson has calculated an estimate of what that sidewalk cost will be. However, whatever that cost is, will have a levy impact for 2018. So with this decision-making that council is making on this issue, this will be a 2018 operating levy budget driver for the rate increase.
Just a clarification, are you not talking about the full cost of the construction? Because obviously, maybe just the sidewalk portion?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So with the road, the $3.5 million that Lee is mentioning, the lion's share of that would be paid for out of the replacement reserve because
Yes.
we are replacing a road and some major components of the
Okay,
road.
so there will be
However,
some levy impact.
The brand new sidewalk
Okay.
that we're proposing, that will have a levy
I
impact
got
and
you.
whatever that
Thank you.
costs.
Councillor Wells, thanks for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And here we go back to last night, where we are pitting one ward against another ward. And not being disrespectful, obviously, Mr. Mayor, and we all have problems, we know that, because we are here representing Norfolk County. The only one that I'm concerned about is Don John Boulevard. That is an issue and a small section of road that has been in need of repairs for the last, just as Councillor Black would say, for the last 25 years, and we have not addressed it. Is it possible, if we have to find 130,000, 140,000, rather than doing the asphalt resurfacing on Thompson Road, could you take that out and leave Don John in? It's still in my ward, and given a choice between the two, that's what I would prefer. Thompson Road would be in my ward. Yeah.
Lee, do you want to respond to that
Well,
question?
sorry.
Then I also have a comment. Go ahead.
Through the mayor to council, I think that everyone is wrestling with the same things that staff wrestle with in terms of when we're preparing the budget. Respectfully, when I look at all of these projects trying to make this work, if we're looking for effectively $3.5 million, I would respectfully suggest that the Kent Street project be delayed, as well as the Holden Ave construction.
That's the problem.
And that the engineering for those other projects go forward. If we're looking for that kind of money, that is really the best way to move them forward. Holden Ave, the engineering is done. It's available to do that. If you're looking for that, delaying the engineering is we're going to effectively have to, in order to get that money from this particular program, we're going to have to cancel the majority of the engineering projects scheduled in Delhi, some of the ones in Waterford. It's going to be a big hit. The council's other alternative is to delay the second part of Second Ave for another year. The construction that was approved for the 2017 year would proceed in 2018. The amount that was going to be scheduled for 2018 could actually be deferred to 2019. That would also achieve the same thing, that you would still see the construction on Second Ave taking place, so there would still be some activity in that area. It would just be spanned over 2 years instead of over a single year.
Just before I go to Councillor Black, just to be clear on that, and I don't like to play the ward game, believe me, I hate playing the ward game. We should be making decisions based on need. However, we did move something forward in Ward 5 last night. Now I am playing the ward game. Lee, what if we put off 1 year Kent Street and the second phase of Second Ave, which is almost 4 million? Is that feasible? I don't want to get into canceling 3 projects in Delhi and something in Ward 7 and 6 at the expense of this decision that I wasn't overly comfortable with it last night. I don't like to do that. But on the safety issue, I went the way I did, and council supported at this point. Lee, what's the possibility of Second Ave and Kent being deferred?
Yeah, through the mayor to council, like as I'd indicated previously, that was sort of my second alternative, was to either Councillor Holden or the second portion of Second Ave, so that council's clear. There will be construction that takes place in 2018 on Second Ave, because it's already approved.
Yes.
So you will still see construction there, but we could certainly delay the second half
Okay.
For another year. And if you combine the two of those projects, we would have sufficient funds to do Evergreen.
Thank you, and we'll see where this goes down the road, just looking at all options. Black and then Height.
Yeah, I knew this would happen. Holden Ave, no way. Holden Ave has been in the roads needs study for years now. The people up on Holden Ave have been calling me for years. I thought it was going to be done. What happened? It got put off. It got put off. I said, sorry, you can't rely on the roads needs study. So now they're anticipating it being done this year for sure. And it's been delayed or put off, whether it's the road needs or the engineering or whatever. And the whole drainage system up in that area, this is the main connection, plus the surface of that road is terrible. So it needs to be done. I can't give up the Holden Ave. The Second Ave, yes. There's so many more residents, plus the drainage issue, the connection from all that area up and above goes straight through there, right down to Kent Creek. So it's not just the road, it's the drainage connection. There's so many residents on there anticipating this. The Second Ave, there's industries up there. If you did road counts, I don't know. I would rather give up the Second Ave if we're going to have to give something up, but not Holden Ave.
Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I agree with Councillor Black that the road counts would be helpful in this situation if we're going to start yanking stuff from different areas. Now, as I understand it, Second Avenue, we haven't started construction on there from last year's approved budget. Now, the engineering is done. None of the work is done, and it hasn't been tendered yet. Are we able to push that entire project ahead? Because I believe that price tag was $2.2 million from last year. Now you're looking at 2.2 plus 1.47. Are we able to push it into the 2019 budget? I would like to see the road counts, because I don't think Second Ave is really much of a priority for that many people. Industrial trucks, they drive on gravel roads for that matter. So I am just wondering, are there any ramifications to deferring that entire project, including last year's $2.2 million price tag, to 2019?
Your comment on that, Lee?
Through the mayor to council, the road, Councillor Height is correct, the road is not particularly the concern in that area. It's the underground infrastructure that's causing us all kinds of grief up in that area. I would respectfully request that we don't delay the first portion. We do have a lot of infrastructure issues that we really need to fix. And, you know, while this is the infrastructure reconstruction program, people keep calling it the road stuff. We have to keep in mind that it's not just the driving surface. We have a lot of infrastructure located underneath the ground, and sometimes that's the driving force for the project. And in the case of Second Ave, it's our infrastructure that's causing us a lot of grief up in that area, not the road surface at all. The traffic counts really don't affect the infrastructure that's under the ground.
I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor, but I'm still going to move forward a motion that we defer both of those phases to 2019, because quite frankly, we don't have the money to spend on this. And if that project is shovel-ready and it's already been pre-engineered, this could be one that's set aside for grant funding when it comes down the pipe. You know, Mr. Mayor, we sit here, all of a sudden we got 15 days worth of notice to get in all these road projects for grant funding. Hopefully this can be one that is on our list, and out of this list, I want to see another one yet, but I'll move that motion if I can get a seconder, Mr.
A
Mayor.
motion to defer both phases. Do I have a seconder for that? A seconder? Councillor Geisens has seconded. Okay, so the motion is to defer both phase 1 and 2. Discussion. Councillor Black?
Through you to Lee, do we have to do, defer both and Kent Street in order to do Evergreen? Can we defer the phase, whatever, the second phase of Second Ave and Kent Street, and would that be enough to do Evergreen, or do we need something more?
The phase of Second Ave that's before you today and Kent Street are more than sufficient to do Evergreen. The first phase of Second Ave has already been approved as part of the 2017 budget deliberations, so that deferring that project will not have any effect on the budget deliberations. And again, from an infrastructure point of view, it is causing us a lot of grief.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. So we don't really need to defer the first phase of it. The second phase and the Kent Street is enough to do the Evergreen. So I can't support the motion on the floor.
I'm not debating in the motion, I'm not allowed to, but I do want to ask Lee, the first phase, that was 2017, that's the east end, I would assume, near Norfolk, of Second Ave, I would think.
No, it was the other, it's
It's
the
the
other half.
the Hunt Street end.
The portion that we're looking at for 2018 was the Hunt to Norfolk Street
Thank you,
section.
okay. So it's the western half, so to speak. All right, well, I guess which half you do first. Councillor Brunton.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. You know, I have no problem with what we're doing here, but we haven't really cut anything, have we? We're just shuffling the deck, and we're trying to get, I mean, let's face it, there are no reserves. We can say there's a reserve fund, but there are no reserves, so all we're doing is shuffling the deck. If we got to get serious here, we got to get rid of stuff somehow. And I don't want to get too far ahead, and I apologize, Lee, if I sound critical, but I don't believe in doing engineering 2 years ahead and then sitting on it and shuffling the deck down. To me, if we're going to shuffle a project, next year will be the same thing. Somebody will be sitting here and they'll be saying, oh, we did the engineering, but we still got to shuffle the project off. So either, if you want to do the Hunt and Kent Street, I don't have a problem, but let's not get too far ahead in all this engineering. We don't need to. These projects we're talking about, most of them can be done in a year in advance and get on with the project. But again, we haven't cut a thing out of this budget yet. We're just shuffling the deck. So if Lee thinks that'll work, I'm prepared to go along with it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sonnenberg. To the motion, please.
Here we are, upsetting the entire apple cart, placing ward against ward, all for the sake of rebuilding or putting in a sidewalk on Evergreen, which was discussed last night, and we all decided it was a safety factor. But there's never been an issue on Evergreen to say it is a safety issue. No one's been run over, no one's been injured to my knowledge. Why can't we just do Evergreen when it's slated to be done, do these as they're listed now, and forget all about this upsetting the apple cart, to use the vernacular? I'm sorry, I'm not going to go for all this reshuffling. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Height, please.
One last comment, Mr. Mayor, is Public Works had mentioned that this doesn't affect this budget, and I disagree with that comment in its entirety. If we ask finance if it does, they will certainly tell you yes, because it's debt finance from the year before. So the whole little flow charts, or the nice little bar charts and graphs that we saw, $2.2 million affects that. So I disagree with those comments, Mr. Mayor. We need to make cuts, period.
Yeah.
This isn't ward versus ward. This is lack of money and debenturing large sums of money to pay for some work on Second Ave. I'm not sure about the Simcoe councilors, if you even ever get a call. If there's some infrastructure that's an issue, have that already. It's ready to turn and burn right now. Get it in when the grants come, and hopefully the feds or the province give us some money, because we can't afford it.
Mr. Clerk, would you read the motion that's on the floor, please, and then we'll get on with the vote.
Moved by Councillor Height, seconded by Councillor Geisens, that both phases of the Second Ave road reconstruction be deferred to 2019.
Further discussion? Both phases be deferred on the Second Ave project. Councillor Brunton,
Yeah, what happened to
second time, go ahead.
What happened to Kent Street?
Pardon, it's not in the motion.
Oh,
No, this is the motion that Councillor Height put and Councillor Geisen seconded to defer the two phases of Second Ave. Councillor Wells, to the motion for the second time, please.
And the reason that it was put on the floor is to find money for something else, am I correct?
For Evergreen Hill Road, I believe. No, just to remove it. Just to eliminate, sorry. I thought we were discussing how to finance Evergreen Hill, obviously not. My apologies as well to the mover and seconder. This is just to eliminate Phase 1 and 2 of Second Ave. Not eliminate, defer them. Mr. Councillor Sonnenberg, second time to the motion.
Clarification from Lee, is this Second Ave project, you said, mainly because of underground infrastructure, not the surfacing?
That is correct.
Are you ready for the motion to be called? Yes, you are. Those in favor of this motion? Those opposed? That is defeated. Anything further, Councillor Black?
We really haven't dealt with, we need a motion to, I guess, defer Kent. Yeah, I don't know. Lee, do you have that sort of in a package? What do you think would work? And then I can take that as a motion? Or, well, do you have something there that...
Through the mayor to council, I would respectfully suggest that the motion should be along the lines that the Second Ave project and the Kent Street from Robinson Street to Colburn Street projects be deferred until 2019. And we'll see if that goes forward. Then if that motion is approved, then you could also bring forward a motion to include the Evergreen Hill Road as a project in the 2018 budget.
Well, could I put that all into one motion? No? You want it like the elimination first and then the addition after?
I like things clean and simple.
Okay,
And when you split it that way, it's...
So that would be my motion, is to defer as suggested, okay? That would be my motion.
Okay, and just to be clear, before I get a seconder, the deferral of Second Ave is the second phase as printed here.
That is correct.
Yes, so that's the 1.475 portion. Okay, the motion is to defer to 2019 the Second Ave. I don't want to call it Phase 2, but this as well as the Kent Street. I will need a seconder to put that motion on the floor. Seconded by Councillor Geisens. Okay, discussion. Wells and Brunton, please.
I asked what the rationale is to if we eliminate this, what is our intention by eliminating it? What do we intend?
My understanding, the deferral, not the elimination, but the deferral of these two projects is to finance the moving ahead of Evergreen. That's what I understand. And I have Wells, and I have Brunton to the motion.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor Luke, I just want to make sure then, the addition of Evergreen is not in that motion, correct? It was just Kent Street moving to 19?
Yes.
And the second phase of Second Ave moving to 19, correct?
That's what the motion is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Height to the motion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question to Public Works about the Kent Street project. Has the engineering already been done?
Yes, it has.
And how's the underground on it?
It is not as bad as the existing section of Second Ave. Kent Street is a combination of both the surface, the traffic volume, and the infrastructure underground, whereas Second Ave is being predominantly driven by the infrastructure underground.
So Kent Street's a high traffic volume?
It's higher than Second Ave, yes.
Thank you. Anything further on the motion? If not, those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? That is carried. I would suggest, Councillor Black, go ahead. I think you're a step ahead of me, but go ahead.
So the second part of that should be to include the Evergreen project.
I was going to suggest, and we could do it that way, one, we could do it by putting a motion to put that in 2018 capital, or wait till next week when it comes before council from committee of council last night. It doesn't matter to me. Either way, I think we'll do the job. Mr. Johnson, what do you suggest? I don't know the right way to do it. I'm just saying those are two options.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I wasn't going to suggest either way, but I wanted to add some information to the discussion, if I may. So there was a question from Councillor Height last night on if we were to do the Evergreen Hill project, because it's not reached its full life of the asset, what the cost would be. And that cost is approximately $120,000, and that would be reflective on your 2018 financial statements once we dispose of the asset. That's an accounting entry. The other item that I would like council to understand is that we are adding, even though the original 10-year capital plan had $2.3 million for the Evergreen project, but Lee's sharpened her pencils a little bit, and that has increased to 3.5. So that is all else being equal, that is increasing our capital plan. With the shuffling that we're doing, that is an increase to our capital plan over 10 years.
Thank you. Councillor Black?
What is procedurally the right thing to do here?
I don't know.
Yeah, I have to ask the
Well,
clerk.
let's go to our clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in hindsight, maybe we should have had that deputation come today rather than yesterday to discuss this matter, so we could have dealt with it all at this meeting. But it is the capital budget, so, I mean, it's probably easier to do it here. What was passed last night was merely direction to staff, so it really isn't hinging on council's debate whether or not we review the Evergreen Hill matter today or delay it for a week.
Well, I'm just going to put the motion on the floor that we include Evergreen Hill Road in the
2018?
the 2018
Capital budget. Okay?
Is
I'll need
that
a
all right with Lee? Does that sound okay?
So we're deferring two, and then this motion would add one in the place of the other two. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Geisens, thank you. And we know, and the one I'm thinking ahead is if next week two members of council return, and for some reason, and this has happened before, Evergreen is turned down next week, well, then we simply remove it from the capital budget. I think that's fair.
Mr. Mayor, if that does happen.
Yeah, if it did.
Then everything should revert, like,
Don't know.
you know, Kent's back in,
Yeah.
Second's back in.
Kent's deferred right now, and so is
God.
Second Ave, so we'd have to have a motion. Go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
Just a reminder, though, that this is a council meeting, so if
Yeah.
we make the decision here to put it in the capital budget, then obviously council can review the capital budget when we go forward and do the operational and
Okay.
the levy budget in the new year, but there won't be an opportunity next week for members that are absent to raise this again. And with your motion, if we could put in the $3.5 million estimate from Lee as well, just to clarify.
Okay with that, seconder? Put in the 3.5. Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Branton? Microphone.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to wait till next week because I don't know where it's going, but again, we haven't accomplished much here. I would like to emphasize again that we shuffled some things off again further, and we're trying to cut this budget down. I would hope we're trying to cut it down. I would like to see us still try to eliminate some pre-engineering and shove it down the line and save not putting more debt into reserves. And there's a few projects on here that I think could be done that way because they're obviously going to get shoved out next year, I think. Anyways, I won't support the motion. I'd like to see it or other members of council want to do next week. I think that's fair. Thank you.
Councillor Height to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just so I'm clear, so the Evergreen Hill, 3.5 million, we cut 2.3 million out, so sitting here today, we just raised the budget by 1.2 million?
Well, I
Just to
will
be clear?
respond and say that the previous motion passed eliminates 3.775 from this. That would be the Second Ave part on this page, and the Kent Street was deferred. So we've got 3.75 that we've deferred and pulled out of 2018, but if this motion passes, 3.5 would replace that 3.75 or whatever it is roughly. Okay? So it is reshuffling, but that's... Any other discussion on the motion? Councillor Black?
According to the numbers you've just given us, we've actually reduced the budget by 250,000 or something?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully the tenders will come in lower and we'll even reduce it more if it's passed. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, those in favor? 1, 2, 3. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3. And I'll support the motion. Therefore, it will be carried. Okay. Page 2-2. I'm sorry, Councillor Geisens, please.
Councillor Brunton talk about doing away with some of the, I guess, the engineering or whatever it has to be done. You can still do that if you so wish, and I'm not sure what you want.
Well, we're going to be sitting here, well, maybe not all of us, but maybe, yeah, well, next year we could be sitting here, I guess, couldn't we? But we're going to be pushing these things off again, unless we want to keep increasing the debt. Because if you look at all these, they come out of reserve funds. There's a couple on here that, and I need some clarification on it. Temperance Street in Waterford, $640,000 grant and subsidies. Where's that money come from, if I may ask, Mayor Luke?
640, where is that on page 2-3?
2-2.
2-2, just give me a second here.
And then the other one is Turl Street Engineering, $260,000. Now, there is no reserve funds. So where's those grants or subsidies coming from?
Okay, I see the grant subsidies on Temperance, yes, and Crystal. James, where do they come from?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it could be from a variety of grants and subsidies. Kathy is looking into our project sheets to find out exactly what it is. My guess would be, could be gas tax, could be any number of things, but we will find out for sure in just momentarily.
Is that just a decision you've made if it comes out of gas tax to fund it that way?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we look at all the projects and the available funding and there's a lot of requirements on what we can fund and what we can't fund, and it depends on the grant, it depends on a whole number of things, and we do strive to fund these projects as much as we can through the available sources.
Well, just looking at them, I don't know, again, if they're, it doesn't to me, Turtle Street, I assume that figure there can't be a complete rebuild. Beckett to King, it must be engineering. Am I right on that, Lee? The 260,000?
That's correct.
Okay, so there's no difference in that and say a couple of these other jobs like in Port Dover, Hazel, Ryerson, Glendon, I assume that 75,000 is pre-engineering, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if you take all those streets, next year, the cost, I don't know how many, what they're gonna come in at, they'll probably be in the millions again to reconstruct all those streets. So all we're doing is pushing stuff off, but we think if we do the engineering now, it isn't gonna work that way. We're gonna be in the same boat next year. So we might as well push some of the engineering ahead. And I'll make a recommendation that, number one, that the Turtle Street, Beckett to King, pre-engineering be delayed or deferred for 1 year. And I'll make another recommendation that the last one on Hazel, Ryerson, Glendon, and Port Dover, again, engineering be pushed off a year. Deferred a year.
Okay, those two items, line
Yeah,
items,
Sure.
that's been moved, and Councillor Height, you have seconded that? You've got that? Thank you, Mr.
Need to
Clerk.
speak.
Okay, Lee, do you want to comment? Then I'll go to council for debate.
Certainly, if council is desirous of doing that, by pushing the 3.5, give or take, $1 million from this construction year to next construction year, I need an opportunity to review my capital forecast to do that. I fully concur with what Councillor Brunton is saying. If you could give me sort of over lunch to run some numbers, I'd like to see which projects we would suggest that you defer the engineering on.
Okay.
Because we may have some better suggestions with what may work better with our capital program. Because all we're going to do is end up with too much construction in 2019 that staff are going to be unable to deliver those. So we'll be recommending some of those. So if you could just bear with me for a little bit, I would like the opportunity to review that to see which engineering projects I think we should be deferring.
That's fine. I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, we'll take that motion, if that's okay with you, Mr. Seconder. We'll just take that motion off for now, and certainly we can revisit this. So we're not going to discuss those two items now because there is no motion. However, I'm open for other conversation suggestions. Councillor Black.
Well, I commend Councillor Brunton for what he's trying to do, but my concern over the years, one of my biggest concerns, and that I've heard from the taxpayers in Simcoe, are the roads. So to me, that's a priority. And I hear it from my fellow colleagues around the table, roads. So, whatever we can do, we should be doing, in my mind, to fix our roads.
Councillor Height.
Could we see the project sheet for 5531715, please?
5531715, St. Andrews?
Yeah, this is St. Andrews.
Yeah, what would you like? Okay, you got it.
Project sheet.
You got it, I got it, sorry.
Wait, where is it?
Councillor Sonnenberg, while he's looking at that, go ahead.
While we're waiting, Councillor Brunton has used the analogy, we're reshuffling the deck. We're not reshuffling the deck. We are rearranging the chairs on the Titanic, is what we're doing.
That's the same thing.
We're reshuffling, we're postponing, we're changing things. And meanwhile, our infrastructure is falling apart. If we're going to save money, we have to find saving somewhere else in this document, but not on roads. Come on.
I will add to a comment here as well. And certainly we all know, and I think we all agree somewhat with Councillor Brunton, that our reserves and what's in our reserves is a concern. Here are 18 road projects listed on these two pages for major reconstruction by our staff that are priorities. One could argue that there may be other roads that are just, but they're in the queue. Look at them, 15 of those, as in every year, are funded from reserves. That's where our major road funding comes from, is reserves. There are some here, there are 3 that are coming out of grants and subsidies. 1, 2, I think there's 3. So this is nothing unusual to use reserve money. That's why we put the money in the reserves, although, as Councillor Brunton continues to remind us, we put it in, but they're running dry and some are in a deficit. But I don't think we should be halting our road reconstruction for a year or two. We're going to fall further behind. Anyhow, Councillor Height, do you have anything on the screen you wish to discuss? Go ahead.
I do, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to move that we move the actual construction costs for this street ahead and only have engineering in this year's budget. So I guess $1.58 million to be moved to 2019. And, Mr. Mayor, if I could comment on this, well, I guess I need a seconder first.
Yeah, if you're going to make that a motion, I assume that's what you had. So St. Andrew, and I'm wondering, Councillor Height, although certainly your motion is on the, not on the floor yet, but close, if the engineering has already been done or if it's included in that, I don't know. Okay, and I don't have the sheet in front of me, but it includes the engineering.
Engineering's down at 160K, Mr. Mayor.
That's included in that figure?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I should be moving that monitor maybe at noon hour where I can read it. So your motion is to just do the engineering in 2018? Thank you. I will need a seconder for that for us to discuss it. Councillor Brunton has seconded that. Lee, do you want to respond? Then I'll open it to council for debate.
Through the mayor to council, the engineering that Council Height is referring to that's listed on there is actually the engineering that we're paying for the field work during the construction. The actual engineering is done, so if you're going to move it, you can defer the whole project in its entirety.
Oh.
I understand you would defer the whole amount, the whole project, correct?
That's correct. That engineering is the engineering money that we spend during the construction period. The engineering for the design has already been implemented, so we don't need to save anything for the 2018. We seem to be moving a lot of projects to 2019. I think that's going to make the 2019 year incredibly difficult to implement, because if we move this one as well, we're in the neighborhood of $6 or $7 million additional construction taking place, and that's a lot for staff to take on, plus the existing program. If we could defer it, staff can have the opportunity to actually review and rejig the capital forecast. I don't want to give people the wrong impression that it was deferred from this year till next year and it's going to be done next year, because I think based on that we're going to have to redo the whole 10-year capital plan to make it all work. Because if not, we're going to have a huge hit in 2019 of construction activity, and we're going to have a huge number, and we're just going to be deferring again next year. We'll be doing the same thing year after year after year.
Councillor Height, wish to change your motion, leave it as presented?
No, I'll move the whole project ahead to 2019.
So your motion then would be to move the entire project to 2019?
Yeah, we don't need the engineering
Mr.
side of
Broughton,
it.
you were the seconder, are you okay with that?
Yes, if I could speak to
Well,
it.
we're getting right to you here in a second. I have Black and Brunton, so I'm going to, so the motion then is not just the engineering, but the entire project to 2019. Okay, Mr. Clerk, to that motion, Black, then Brunton, please.
Okay, question through you to Lee first. Is St. Andrew Street, I believe the sort of the northerly portion was done maybe a few years ago. This is kind of the southerly portion where you got that high-low road. Is that what this section is?
That's correct.
Yeah, and would that high-low, that's a really complicated spot right there. It's really dangerous, very confusing. So would that be leveled somehow?
That's some of the stuff that we'll be reviewing as part of the ongoing stuff that's currently going on now. We currently have some design work taking place for that project. So we haven't finalized the exact look of it, but deferring it for a year isn't going to have obviously, we don't have enough money to do all of the infrastructure work that we need to do. That being said, I don't think the deferral of this project by a year is going to have a fundamental effect on the deterioration of that infrastructure.
Okay, well, thank you for that, but I'm not going to support the motion. You know, when staff come forward with their recommendations, it's unfortunate that, you know, we've